medications are not the only answer. And so the integrative approach looks at the role of lifestyle, the role of sleep and nutrients and stress management as a foundation, but also functional medicine looks at root cause. Is it a parasite in your gut? Is it a mercury toxin? Is it a mycotoxin? Is it something that's driving your body's physiology in an adverse direction? And that's kind of more the functional medicine part of it, looking more at the biochemistry, the physiology, the genetics of how you process toxins.
Hey, USGU family. I am really, really excited. I feel like this is such an honor for you to get to meet one of my favorite, most important people on my health team. We have such an awesome guest today, Dr. Jyothi Rao, who has been working with me in many different capacities to help healing with my thyroid, in entering perimenopause, which has been fascinating, and just really shifting the way that I'm looking at my body and health and healing. And I'm so happy to have you here because you have so much wisdom and really want to get into a lot of these topics. So thank you, Dr. Rao, for making the time today to hang with us and to share your knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So before we get into, I have all these different questions to ask you, but I would love for anyone who doesn't know you yet, maybe to talk for a moment, what got you interested in medicine and specifically from that integrative perspective? I know you also have acupuncture background, like you've got a lot. Was there something that happened in your life, or did you know it like 5 years old, I want to be a physician? Like what was the impetus to get you in this whole world?
It's a great question. A lot of us who find functional medicine and integrative medicine have just thought about, our vision. And I was 3 years old when I decided I was going to be a physician. I was with my grandfather in India. And we grew up in a small town. My grandfather was a physician and he took care of hundreds of people in villages, and he rode his bicycle and he walked through the nights, and he was just an amazing man. And I would go to clinic with him and I would see the way people kind of looked at him, and he would be able to ease their worry and kind of suffering. And so very early on, I was like, okay, I want to kind of be in the space of healthcare and do that. But when I went through the training and I went out and practiced medicine in New York, it was about putting out fires. It was 10-minute visits. It was, here's a medicine for this and a medicine for that. And it felt really like, it just felt wrong. And I didn't feel like I was doing any sort of healing. I was just putting out the fire. And sometimes I caused more harm by giving them a medicine, which caused a side effect, which I gave them another medicine for. So, it just kept going and going. And I just didn't feel very satisfied by that. And so I started doing acupuncture in that practice that I was in. And the group that I was in there was not amenable to integrative approaches. Was 27 years ago. And so they didn't want me talking about diet. They didn't want me talking about any supplements. They didn't want me talking about anything but standard medications, surgeries, physical therapy, that kind of thing. And I felt very lost. I was going to maybe think about leaving medicine. This is not what I got myself into. So then I found functional medicine. I found acupuncture, which opened that whole door for healing, which is such a different approach. Eastern medicine, which is very much about balance and healing, which our body is capable of doing. It taught me that our body is very capable of healing. And so we're not stuck with these diagnosis codes that we have for patients. And blood pressure isn't blood pressure the same for two people. Headaches aren't the same thing for two people. And there's layers and layers and layers. And every 3 months, I'm learning a new layer. It's endless, the learning. But the point was, it got me thinking about healing versus putting out fires. And then when I moved to Maryland, I was fortunate enough to land in a physician's office who was my mentor, who showed me the way kind of in the path of functional medicine and root cause and looking at all sorts of modalities, including neural therapy and peptides and things I never even heard about. So my journey has been about the satisfaction that I would like in terms of my daily practice, but also a personal journey of not being tired. Just a stressful life and exhaustion, constantly being exhausted. I was constantly looking for ways for me not to be tired. And to be honest with you, this may make your audiences laugh. Like, we didn't even know what the value of sleep was, right? We spent 110 hours a week, making we're working as residents, and we didn't even know how important sleep was. And up until like 5 or 8 years ago, where the sleep literature is blowing up, and now other physicians are saying, do you know how important sleep is? Like, it's almost kind of comical because we all feel it when we don't sleep. We all feel bad when we don't eat well. We all feel bad when we're totally stressed out. We get sick more often. So all of these things were around, but we never had the ability to pause and look at how it could help us stave off infections or illnesses and actually heal us from taking us from being a diabetic to not being a diabetic. That was kind of unheard of when I started. Reversing illness. I mean, I'm not saying every single illness. I'm saying that it's possible, and why not try and learn about the power of your body's healing mechanisms and give it the tools it needs, is at least what my job is now that I look at, not to put out the fires necessarily, but also to teach people that they're able to heal themselves in some capacity.
It's beautiful. I want to come back to that in a minute. For those who may not be as aware or maybe don't know the difference, maybe for a moment just to talk about the functional medical movement and what functional medicine is versus traditional Western medicine.
Yeah. And I think I will say it first, there's a role for everything. It's not one is
Yeah.
bad, one is good. There's absolutely a role for traditional medicine, which involves, life-saving medications, chemotherapy, surgeries, and so many inventions that we've had that has been life-saving and life-altering. But my problem is that it cannot be the only choice
Right.
when you are not life-threatened. If you're in a state of chronic inflammation and a sense of fatigue or weight gain or just hormonal changes because of aging, it's not the only answer. Medications are not the only answer. And so the integrative approach looks at the role of lifestyle, the role of sleep and nutrients and stress management as a foundation, but also functional medicine looks at root cause. Is it a parasite in your gut? Is it a mercury toxin? Is it a mycotoxin? Is it something that's driving your body's physiology in an adverse direction? And that's kind of more the functional medicine part of it, looking more at the biochemistry, the physiology, the genetics of how you process toxins, how you process food. Carbohydrates may be different than even a twin sister. So it's very much a personalized approach using specific tests to isolate the ability for your body to create imbalance given the surroundings that you have. So it takes into account genetics, family history, personal history, trauma, genetics, environmental toxins, everything. How many antibiotics have you taken? So it's a picture of kind of a big picture of like kind of a puzzle of like, why are you where you are today? And so what can we do different, and what do we know on how to work for in order to create more balance in your body and allow your body to heal?
One of the things I remember when we first met, first of all, I was like, oh my gosh, I have more than 10 minutes with this person, this physician, which was such a gift. And, I mean, remember we spent an hour when I get to come and meet with you. And you and I, you've now been on this journey with me for a couple of years. And we look at, I remember you said something around, are you anxious? Like, are you like we looked at the whole biopsychosocial, I mean, spiritual, mental, physical, emotional. I'd never had a physician, and I agree, Western medicine, it has its place too. I had just never, in terms of working with endocrinologists around healing my thyroid, I'd never had anybody say to me, wait a minute, like, how's your sleep? And what kinds of thoughts are you having? And are you feeling overwhelmed? And how might this all be connected? And oh, by the way, as a female, because I know many of our beautiful listeners are women, and there's not one woman that I know of that doesn't go through hormonal changes on in the 40s, 50s, and perimenopause, menopause. And I didn't know anything about it, Dr. Rao. I went to, my OB, and she was like, oh yeah, no, just stay on, keep your IUD. And I get that might be a choice for some people, and that's fine. But my intuition said that's not the right choice for you. I just felt it. And I remember it was so refreshing, and I felt seen and heard and listened to. And so what you're talking about, really getting at the root cause and looking from the different angles, it's part of why I wanted to have this conversation, because I think this is something that is missing for many people, is really looking at all the different aspects of what's going on. It's not just one thing. And that's been a huge aspect of my own healing journey. And so I love how you said that. And I've experienced that from you.
I also think it's a partnership. I don't think it should be, I should dictate to you what is right for you. You should go on this medicine or you should take this supplement. I think my job is always to kind of facilitate a discussion of what feels right for you and what kind of sits well. There are several women who come and see me who are absolutely miserable in terms of perimenopause, menopausal type symptoms, who are terrified about taking hormones, and yet there's no real conversation about them. It's like, okay, take them or don't take them. It's up to you. That's not the conversation I want to have. I want to talk about, why are you afraid? What are your worries? What do you think? Yes, there might be a risk, but these are what we need to monitor. Just like any consultant that you would see for finances or accounting or legal, you want to be able to understand what are the risks of not doing something. For example, treating osteoporosis with medications, what's the risk of not doing that versus the risk of doing it? And am I comfortable living with that choice? Because I can't make that choice for people, right? So it is really about creating partnerships that you feel comfortable of finding out the facts, and then you can do with it, because none of us have the crystal ball, unfortunately, that can see that this is the right decision for you. But we can always make, intentional decisions, knowing that the person who we're talking with is giving us sound advice and up-to-date literature, and then we can make a choice that we can live with, right? So that is also part of the journey, which is hard because you might have something happen and your sister might come see me and then her program is completely different and it doesn't work what I tried with you with her. That kind of thing happens all the time, where what works for one person doesn't work for everyone. And it's frustrating as the patient too, because you're like, oh, I thought this was going to work and it didn't work. But that's
Right.
that's the struggle with this process as well. It's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit of going back and pulling back the layers. But I think speaking at a foundational level, are you detoxing? Are you sleeping? What kind of diet do you have? We can guess what your microbiome looks like. We can look at things that kind of help direct us, but sometimes it is just a little bit of a process of trial and error of finding the right answers.
Yeah. I love that you talked about partnership. Maybe we can go a little bit deeper for a moment into, there's a lot of misconceptions about, especially with those in perimenopause, menopause, hormone replacement, especially in the bioidentical category. I know we talked about this a lot. I've been researching it. You and I were talking before we started recording, and we were talking about, this is a world driven by men so far. And there's been now it's changing, but a lot less research on female, especially women, hormonal changes now. I mean, I feel like when I was pregnant, lots of research there, but not in this area. No, that is shifting. Maybe we could just talk for a minute, because I know as somebody who was really suffering, it was so refreshing to hear from you and understand that there are options and ways to take care of ourselves that actually can be advantageous and helpful and healthy. And I know not everyone's the same, and depending on your history, but there's a misconception, I think, around menopause and around what's safe and what's not. And I don't know, we just could dive into
Yeah.
that for a moment.
So I will start by saying that hormones are extremely challenging for anyone. Women are a little bit harder to manage than men in terms of levels and kind of finding the right dose, because all the hormones play in the same sandbox together. So first, one of the worst things we've done in medicine, I think, is to vilify hormone replacement for women, which has been going on since my entire training until very recently. And it's all based on, not clear data and also false data, in the sense of we've interpreted in the wrong way. And I'll get to that in a minute. But the one concept that's really important to know is that cortisol, your adrenal hormone, interacts with your thyroid, which interacts with your sex hormones like estrogen and progesterone. So just putting on estrogen and progesterone for someone because if you think about root cause, I lost my estrogen and progesterone, so maybe if I take estrogen and progesterone, I'll feel better, is a very good concept because that's going after the root cause. However, your stress levels will dictate how your body sees those estrogen and progesterone. The way your body detoxes, the way your gut microbiome is, the way your liver is, will decide how much elevation of those levels will be there and how much you're getting out, what kind of metabolites you have out. So all of these hormones and your detox systems and your gut and your diet and your sleep, and it's all related, right? So part of it is just, oh my gosh, so overwhelming. It's not just like I can take a pill and get better. So one thing is that we have to think big picture and comprehensive about hormone replacement. It's not just estrogen and progesterone, as the data showed that some people, very few people, it was some really low number, maybe 6 people out of several tens of thousands, got a slightly uptick in cancer rates with the equine estrogen and chemical progestin, which they found out looking after everything, it wasn't actually the estrogen part. It was the progestin that caused the higher rates of cancer. And now we're also looking at women up to the ages of 60 to 80 that were already at higher risk for cancers, because as we age, one of the things that goes up is cancer, all cancers. And so we have to tease out all the misinformation of is this cause and effect? Is this just kind of adding to it? So anyway, after all that data has been analyzed, it's now considered safe, even in traditional medicine, to replace women within the 10-year frame of them going through menopause. And that is up until the age of 60. And I'll get to after 60 in a minute. But perimenopause, menopause can start as early as 35 for women. And it's about 84 different symptoms, which is very annoying because already our periods and our cycles are so different. Our hormones are never the same. It's different every week. So you're already kind of thinking about, oh, is this PMS? And, we all kind of, at least in the culture of men, they're like, oh, this woman's, kind of not, it's probably part of her cycle because she's emotionally unwell, whatever it is. There's these concepts that are out there that are not necessarily true, but there is a truth to them in that our hormones change every week. We feel badly based on the estrogen progesterone ratios every single week. It changes as long as you're menstruating. So of course it's going to be challenging. But then in menopause, there's also an estrogen progesterone ratio because we get estrogen from toxins. We get it from chemicals. We get it from receipts. We get it from plastics. We get it stored in our fat. So we have, even in menopause, too much estrogen and not enough progesterone, most of us. And so the challenge is figuring out what a hot flash looks like. Could it be too little estrogen? Could it be too little progesterone? Could it be that I'm so stressed out? Because some women, when they think about stress, they flash, right? So, and then that cortisol affects the thyroid, it affects the sex hormones, everything kind of like chases each other. So I just go back and I say, okay, let's make this simple. We're going to clean up everything. We're going to clean up the gut. We're going to clean up the detox systems. We're going to get you on stress management techniques. We're going to have you balance your cortisol and then go after the estrogen and progesterone. And sometimes when we clean up the gut and we do the detox stuff, women don't need hormones. They don't need it. Not everybody needs hormones. The second issue that's come up is longevity research is exploding. So for the kids that are going to be 30 in 2030, their expected lifespan can be as high as 125. So imagine living a third of your life menstruating and 2/3 of it in menopause. Like, it's a totally different game changer. So we want women to be quality of life to be optimal in menopause. Before, it was thought, okay, life expectancy 65, 70, 75, not so bad. But now we're talking about women, people living to 100, 120. That's crazy. We need everyone to be optimally living as long as they can. And that's what the explosion with longevity has been. So my issues are, and then I always try to get people off of any medicine, whether it's hormones or not. I always try to talk about, do you still need it? Is this still something you need to take your blood pressure medicine? Basically, because everything's related, like your weight and your stress and your sleep and your diet. When things change there, your requirements are also going to change. So anyway, I don't know if I helped or made it more confusing.
It's so great because, first of all, love the idea that there's a longer longevity for women, and Humanity is increasing. Yes, please. And, you know, what I also love is there's no judgment here. Like if it's weight, if it's sleep, if it's just, let's get curious. Let's look at this from how can we help, as you said, detoxing your liver, cleaning up your microbiome, looking at your sleep and your cortisol levels. All of these, to me, what I've experienced is, wow, each and every one of them really leads to feeling more grounded and more well. And, I actually hadn't told you this yet. I'm laughing because I got my green smoothie. We've talked a lot about diet and cleaning up, my gut biome. And for anyone watching, many of us, even if you think you're eating healthy, there's a lot of crap in much of our food, as you know, toxins, as you said, and receipts and things. And I appreciate the holistic, the full 360 approach. Actually, a quick story. I feel like I'm just sharing all my medical information, but I guess I'm allowed to because it's me. I love Dr. I was like, okay, we're going to test your blood. We're going to test this. And I went recently, I had my first colonoscopy. Yay, went fine, just fine. And I was really nervous and I came out of it, and I'm first of all kind of in this like dreamy state. And anyhow, the nurse was there and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you are so positive. You must have a really healthy gut." I'm like, "What?" I was still like not fully I was still a little bit out there, twilight zone. And she's like, "You're so positive. Like it's so fun to talk to you." I must have been talking to her a lot. I think I get very chatty when I'm in a situation like that. She said, "Yeah, you must be so healthy in your microbiome." And I'm like, "Wow, okay. Why do you say that?" She said, "Because I get so many people here, I think that are doing colonoscopies that may have, gut issues that are so mean and not kind and angry." And she said, and it's so connected to your gut, your emotions, your emotional well-being. Now, of course, I still can get angry and all of those things, but I came away and I was like, that is so fascinating. She sees people day in and day out and has a sense of their well-being. I'm always working on healing my gut. However, I had a moment of like, you know what? All of that work is paying off. See a difference. But that's the kind of thing I don't think many of us think about is, as you said, it's all connected, but our biome, that can affect moodiness and anxiety and anger and emotions. And so just being able to look at all these different lenses, it's important and often it is often left out in most traditional practices and something that for me has been really healing. And I appreciate that that's what functional medicine is. That's what you do.
Thank you. The system that is the gut brain system is the most one of the parts of the autonomic nervous system, the enteric system. So we have the parasympathetic, the sympathetic, and the enteric system, and that is the largest amount of neurons we have. So the communications between your gut and your brain
Mm,
is probably one of the largest communicators to your brain. So things that are happening within your GI tract can affect your brain, but things that affect your brain, like anxiety, depression, memory loss, can affect your gut and the gut microbiome, which then can affect how you detox, how inflamed you are, how you process gluten. So everything counts. So this was the epiphany that I had. I was always chasing gut, brain, gut, brain, gut, brain. I never looked at brain, gut. And so when you find the
mm,
power that our thoughts matter, our emotional state as we're walking around matters, because if we're ultimately worried about the gut microbiome, we need to be worried about most of our day, what we're doing here, right? And that could be I'm stressed out of my mind all day, or I'm worried about future events, or,
yeah,
I'm just angry. I'm just irritable. I'm angry, which is another reason why to work on the emotions,
yeah,
because it does change the way we think. It does increase cortisol within our body. It does cause inflammation from the neck down, and it affects our gut microbiome. So and that's where I delved into more of the trauma part. And this has been my personal journey through medicine too,
mm,
where you have to talk about trauma in
yeah.
order to heal the gut. So there's this full circle.
I would love to pick that up. And I sometimes I'll hear questions that I think others are asking, or this one might be my own too. Because I remember with you, this actually was something and I can imagine, we're talking about, you gotta look at your gut, you're gonna look at your sleep. It can feel overwhelming. And one of the things we talked about, I mean, I remember I was crying and overwhelmed, and I'm like, it's exactly what you just said, and I'm just saying to anyone listening, what we don't want to do is stress you out with all of the different things. Because I know for me, that brain gut, that direction of it, that was causing a lot of anxiety, the feeling anxious of all the things that I need to do and to change. And I love what you said, which is our thoughts are so powerful, which they are. And just to get that, really looking at trauma, looking at what is going on emotionally and mentally is just as important as prescribing a supplement. I got my 3 smoothies a day. I'm actually going to be interviewing Dr. Goldner. She's coming on. We're going to talk about this because you've been a proponent and this has been life-changing. But like, I love my smoothie. I'm going to drink it after. And it's important, yet we don't want to miss the other aspect of it. Let's dive into trauma and I know you've been really diving into that more and how to help people with their trauma, and then also being aware of it, which I don't know that there was awareness 15, 20 years ago about trauma.
I mean, it was a real eye opener for me because as an internist, I don't really have much training in psychology or in trauma or in the management of any emotional type of issues like PTSD. We give medicines for it and we recognize symptoms and then we refer. But what I didn't know is how impactful those emotions were to the nervous system, because there's a part of our brain called the limbic system that sits and regulates anger and fear, and it holds on to things and it kind of plays stuff back all the time. And so it directly talks to our vagus nerve. And our vagus nerve, if we step back and look at what I perceive as like one of the biggest issues about keeping us healthy, is the balance between the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, our fight or flight and our rest and digest. These two things are going on all the time without our knowledge. It's autonomic, it's automatic. We are not in control. It's not voluntary. So when you see a stressor, your fight or flight kicks up, your cortisol kicks up, your adrenaline kicks up, and it gets you through danger, whatever that danger your brain is telling it. And then when it calms down, your rest and digest pick up. So this particular issue, rest and digest, as many of us know, when we're very stressed out, we can get heartburn, indigestion, gas, diarrhea, right? So there's a lot of things that happen in our GI system that can manifest stress. So when we increase our rest and digest, which is also rest and digest is not, rest is not just sleep. Rest is also, how am I thinking all day? What's my brain telling my body? How calm am I? That is impacted by the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the parasympathetic system, and the gut also is where the 80% of our immune system is, which makes all the itises in our body, whether it's a rash is an itis of the skin, hair loss is an itis of the scalp, sinusitis, bronchitis. These are all itises. They're all inflammation, and 80% of those cells that make it are in the gut. And so you're talking about, okay, so now the vagus nerve impacts the gut, and then the microbiome is in the gut, which impacts our immune system. And then the vagus nerve directly impacts our immune system. So far, my limbic system is telling my vagus nerve that I'm in fight or flight all the time. I'm never resting and digesting optimally. I'm never getting like optimal reset of this pattern, which my brain is constantly running from a tiger. And that is what trauma does. It hijacks our immune system because we are not allowing our body to heal. You have to be in more of a parasympathetic state, a rest and digest state, for your body to go from, danger to healing. And so let me just plug my thing in before I lose you. So that's what was so much of an eye opener for me, the level of impact that trauma, fear, anxiety have in health, because people will heal faster if you address that limbic system. And there's entire courses on this. So it's not just about your vagus nerve. I used to be obsessive about vagus nerve, meditate, yoga, deep breathing, cold plunges, all that stuff. But it's also about the limbic system and that retraining. There's many retraining programs out there. And I started to see the needle move in my chronically unwell patients, whether it was mold or long haul COVID or chronic fatigue, when they were implementing techniques to work on their limbic system, their vagus nerve was working better and their immune system was not being hijacked. So that's where I saw it in an internal medicine perspective of all the itises getting lower. It's a journey. It's not a quick fix, but it's another tool. And it's a very important tool that I didn't know about until the last 2 or 3 years when I started to see more long haul COVID, chronic fatigue, mycotoxins, things that kind of keep people from healing.
I'm pausing really quickly. I want to share something very exciting. There are some changes coming to the USG podcast. We are going to be adding a Divine by Design segment where we are going to be collecting your sacred stories, your signs, your synchronicities. These are the kinds of experiences that give goosebumps, that when you hear them, your mind is blown. So if you would like to submit one of your sacred stories, go to juliereisler.com/share. There you'll find a form. You can fill it out, upload your 2 to 3 minute video. We will be watching and going through all of the submissions and hope to share your sacred story and shine your light on this community, because in truth, we are all divine by design and we rise together in community. We are about uplifting consciousness and sharing these beautiful, powerful synchronicities and sacred signs and stories. This is what helps to build our faith muscle. So I hope to get a submission from you, my friend. And as always, thank you so much for being part of this beautiful community. Right. Let's talk for a minute. So fascinating, and really understanding the limbic system. If I understand correctly, the amygdala, I believe, is in the limbic system, which controls emotion. Yeah. Let's talk about some of the remedies, some of the tools that do work. So if someone's listening and they've been struggling with PTSD of some kind, or a trauma, or, an ongoing feeling of panic or anxiety. I mean, honestly, Dr. Rao, call me crazy here. I think, and this is partly why I do this show, is I want everyone to have tools, things that we can do to put ourselves back in that parasympathetic kind of rest and digest and calm state. There's a lot of change, especially all over the country, all over the world, right? I know if you're in the States, for example, right? We have an election probably coming up soon, most likely, right? And just the events in the world, things that are happening that can bring, and then of course there's familial things and interpersonal and in your life. And if there's traumas that have happened, with a partner or at work, or, there's like so many layers of how trauma can show up. But I think even just being in the world, and I know in this country with a lot of challenging things happening, that can bring up fear and can bring up doubt and feeling of a lack in control. So it's very easy to see how the limbic system, like the amygdala, could be really lit up right now for many people. So I guess my question would be, what are some of the techniques and tools that you've seen really work? And we can share that here and have links, and because I want to have ways that we can heal ourselves. We are able to, like you said, we have the ability to heal. We're meant to.
Yeah. So there was two other really fascinating patterns that emerged in the last 10 years. One was some of the election results over the last few years have had a ton of impact on people's immune systems. And it showed up as worsening high blood pressure, diabetes. And it was a pattern that I didn't initially recognize, but there was a lot more unwell people when the election time came around. And that was the first time I saw this type of stress response that was so persistent. And then it was COVID. And COVID's fear of traveling and being with loved ones and touching and hugging, and so much fear started some high level. One, we didn't have access to medical doctors and hospitals because people were shut down, but also I think the actual immune system started to cause issues where people actually had more illness, had more issues with their immune system because of the fear response, right? So these were kind of two side patterns that were emerging. And then the tools that I saw, and I'm not an expert in the field, so I apologize if they're not clear, but the tools that I saw that were very effective were EMDR, eye movement therapy, tapping, EFT, but also in energy medicine. There's different types of tapping, and energy medicine was what I had learned from my colleague who's a general surgeon. She started using tapping as a routine part of movement. And as an acupuncturist, I get it. It's energy, it's vibration, Reiki. These are tools that I saw started moving the needle. And then the other courses that are out there are limbic system reset courses online. And one of the ones that I find is really powerful and sustainable, and almost 8 out of 10 people I tell actually do it, is Primal Trust. Primal Trust is a program online, and you have to just get through level one as a basis. And I think you only pay for the months that you use it. So it could take you up to 3 months to go through level one. Very accessible, very well taught. A lot of it is didactic up front, the why and the how. So people buy in and they understand their bodies, and you're left with the knowledge of how you can help yourself down the road. And you're left with a ton of tools, and not every tool works for everyone, right? So part of it is I could swear all day about tapping. It does nothing for this person, but then EMDR or another affirmation skill or reframing skill can work for somebody else. There's so many things I don't even know about, but in the sense that the course teaches you. But there is so much out there now that's online that you don't have to leave your home, but at least access it. I feel about Primal Trust the way I feel about acupuncture. It's never wrong. So you can absolutely, anyone can take it and anyone can try it. It may not be for you, but it might be for your child or your brother or sister or mother or something like that. But it's so much knowledge that is so hard to find sometimes. And that's one of the beauty of internet and access now, is that we have tools like this available. You don't need a doctor's appointment. Now, I would say that if you have micro traumas or significant trauma, please find yourself a provider, because as you do these courses, it will come to the surface and you might relive some of that stuff, which would be nice to have someone to work with. So I do encourage people who have kind of a sense of that's going to be me, I need to have somebody around. That would be great to align yourself with anyone that you feel would help you through that as you're going through the program. Is it a cure-all? No, but it starts to move the needle to wake up that hijacked vagus nerve and the parasympathetic system and going towards healing. And that's really what we want. We want all the tools we can to kind of continue our healing process.
Yeah. I will make sure for those, either you get this in the show notes on YouTube for sure, in the description, we'll have all these links. And I want to say, actually, I'm going to link, I just had um, Donna Eden. I just had her and her
Oh,
husband,
great.
David Feinstein.
Send
We
you.
just, it was awesome. And it was all about tapping and their book on tapping. And if I can share, because I've done EMDR and it was interesting for me. I actually am finding tapping, and this is what you just said, we're all unique. We're all divine by design. We're all a little different. You know, for me, it was actually in this interview, we did an example of tapping, and I was, all right, I'm going to be courageous. I'm going to talk about, you know, I have anxiety with flying when it's turbulent. I get really scared, and that I can feel that affects my cortisol. And so we tapped together. And I've been working with someone like Gina since then, and I've realized tapping, it really works for me because I'm verbal. So this is really true what you're saying. These tools, like, try them. We'll put the link for Primal Trust. But that it's so fascinating to me. I think what she was explaining, you probably get this too with your acupuncture background. When we tap on these main meridian points, those energy impulses move through our fascia up to our brain. I mean, it's like, it's so cool.
There's channels that are in the extracellular matrix that's a whole organ system that we don't know that much about, but there is a whole matrix that surrounds at
Mm,
the extracellular level outside of our organs that has these channels. And the Chinese figured it out
yeah,
thousands of years ago because they
yeah,
were very observant, and they created these meridians, and they hold true. So it's fabulous. And I don't think we've even kind of tapped into what tapping does, to be honest, because it's so
yeah.
powerful. And Donna Eden, I took her course online on mindvalley.com, which is another university, online university that has a lot of self-development courses. And she
Yes.
has a course on there.
Oh,
Um,
great.
yeah.
That's great.
And, but I think, yeah, locally to where I live, there are people, but my colleague Dina Sager is a retired surgeon who does tapping. I mean, it blows me away because, you know, surgeons are like, there's a problem, let's take it out. She's absolutely about the body healing itself, and it's fantastic. Now, does that work for everyone all the time? No. So, I mean, please, what I'm saying is
Yeah, try.
talk to a provider about whatever your issues are. But I think that these are tools that are not used enough
Yeah.
that could absolutely aid in a lot of hurt and suffering.
Yeah, absolutely. Gina's fantastic. You actually connected me to her, which connected me to these classes.
Mm.
And I am not doing the certification tomorrow, but someday I will definitely do the Eden Energy Medicine. I have to. It is so profound. And then there's another aspect that I think is underneath this, which on this show, I know for me, I'm really, really, really tuned in and curious about and lit up about intuition, because I really see it as like the seat of our inner guidance and wisdom and empowerment. And I what I have found is the more that I'm able to be in a rest, digest, parasympathetic sympathetic nervous or state of my vagus nerve being happy, the greater I can connect to my intuition. And it's like a byproduct with more balance. And I'm sure you've seen that or experienced that, kind of tapping into the spiritual byproducts and aspects. When there's more balance and more flow, we're able to access greater, less fear driven guidance, and more of the
Yeah.
guidance that comes from something greater.
Yeah, that's well said. Yeah.
So
That's so
powerful. I so appreciate the work you're doing. And when I started this, one of the things, everyone listening, I said that Dr. Rao is part of my team, and just encourage, I know that to have a team and to have a functional practitioner, it's not always covered by insurance. Sometimes it can be. It's something that I don't know if you're seeing Dr. Rao is starting to shift the way that we make it accessible to more people. If you want to share before we wrap, because I really believe in the team approach, having somebody that is really with you in your health and is not looking from just one lens. I have someone who does Reiki and acupuncture. I just believe in all of these different practices. But with functional medicine, are you seeing that become more accessible for people?
Oh, yeah. So I think there's been a more and more kind of less satisfaction from providers, at least in the world of internal medicine and primary care, for the status quo. And so more people are going into lifestyle medicine, integrative medicine. There's a lot of different avenues that does look a little bit more broadly. And so functional medicine doesn't have to be the only place, but even if you see someone who's talking about lifestyle, diet, sleep, stress, it's a great starting point, right? So that's lifestyle medicine doctors and integrative doctors. Yeah, there's a lot of these people, not just doctors, but providers. And so I do see specialists going into cardiology and rheumatology and endocrine who are functional medicine doctors. So now, which is fantastic, integrative cancer doctors, integrative, so this is amazing, because then when I send people to specialists, typically it's very nerve wracking when they're saying, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Hashimoto's doesn't get better. Why are you checking your TPO? Like, it's just these contradicting thoughts for the patient. That's just like, I don't want them to have these competing thoughts, because it's not all right or all wrong, but it's like when someone just says, well, that's dumb, why are you doing that? It's a really hard thing for a patient. So when you have more of a referral basis of people talking the same language is really great. And I see it growing and blossoming like exponentially every year. When I was doing it, I started, I don't even know how long I started, 20 years ago. There was nobody doing it. When I was doing acupuncture 23 years ago, nobody was doing it in my area. And now they thought that I was kind of like that, side doctor or whatever. Now it's very common. I get referrals from other doctors for acupuncture, for functional medicine, which is at least the open-mindedness is there. And people are thinking about outside the box because they've had their patients experience. Wait, you got better from your diabetes? You got off your medications? What'd you do? Oh, I just, so they kind of are open-minded also because they're seeing success rates in their patients without medications. And I think that's awesome. And so as that grows, hello? Oh, I'm sorry, I lost you. As that grows, I think there will be more access. Like for me, I know everyone can't see me, so I do things like Facebook Live, and I have, I have things like webinars and podcasts, and try to explain to people, at least give them resources and trying to start the process. So I think everybody's kind of has access to it now. The problem with the internet is kind of teasing out what's real and what's not, but what's also personal to your journey. That diet might be absolutely amazing for this person with autoimmune disease, but it doesn't do anything for you, or it flares you, right? Because it's based on your gut microbiome. And that's where the frustration comes in. And sometimes I think it's worth working with someone for short periods of time to personalize it for you. And then you get your toolkits, and then you know what to do after that. And sometimes it's a year commitment with someone. I mean, maybe you could speak to that, but I do think that it's obviously worth it to be. I mean, I'm in medicine for 30 years, and I'm more excited than ever to be in medicine because of all the amazing therapies and options and tools that are there for each person. You know, it's not so limited anymore.
Right. It's really, no, it's amazing. And I love that you do have, and we'll make sure to have your information, free webinars and lives that you do. You know, there's a lot of ways to be supported, even if it's not being able to make an appointment or to see you or another physician. There's a lot of ways to be supported. If you could share your website or the best way people can find you,
Sure.
that would be
It's
fantastic.
rawwellness.com, and the practice is called Shakti, Shakthi, Health and Wellness Center. And we also have books called Body on Fire. It's a book I co-wrote with the cardiologist on lifestyle changes to reduce chronic illness, and then a cookbook to also go along with that called Body on Fire Cookbook.
Love it. And is your approach with, I didn't even know you had a book. That is so cool. I'm like, I'm going to check it out. Do you come from an Ayurvedic perspective, Dr.
I
Rao?
wish. I wish. I do
Oh,
not. I wish I could learn it. It's a whole different school, and like you said, someday I'm going to learn it, but right now I remember out. It's a
yeah.
whole
You,
acupuncture was so hard for me to wrap my head around because it's so different. And then
yeah,
I've been kind of thinking about, I did energy medicine for a while, and that was also kind of, all of these things are just, you have
yeah.
to have the time. And in my menopausal brain, I can't, I can't grab all the information as much as I want to right now. So,
You're doing a lot. I was shocked. Okay, for those who don't realize, acupuncture to become proficient in acupuncture in itself is years. Like that's a whole where I went to school at
yeah.
Maryland University of Integrative Health. MUIH, it was the first acupuncture school in the East Coast. And I remember when I was getting my degree in health and wellness coaching, all of my friends that were doing the dual acupuncture and coach, oh my gosh. I mean, it was like,
It's
you know,
intense.
it's intense. Yeah. The anatomy piece, the meridians, it's so cool what you're doing. And I just want to like bring it home that, our bodies are meant to heal. Again, one of the reasons what I so appreciated with you is, I actually don't even talk about the thyroid condition that I'm healing. I don't even, I'm mindful of my words about it because I know it can heal. I really do. I know that it can shift and heal and change in whatever way that my body's going to do that. That was like, I was looked at like I had 5 heads. I'm not kidding. When I shared with the endocrinologist I was seeing, who is a well-known endocrinologist, and that's fine. And I said, can I change my TPOs? Can this heal? And she's like, not really. Like this is what it is. And you've been working with me. It is absolutely healing. The thyroid paradoxes, I think is what it is, the TPOs are going down, down, down. It's going into normal. And we'll just see my body. I'm not stressing her out about it, but like it is possible. Our body is meant to heal. I know that we've seen so many more women these days with thyroid conditions. And the last thing I'll just say with that, maybe you can talk about it. When I had this health breakdown, my intuition kicked in and was like, you are not speaking your truth. And I will say from a energetic standpoint, and this was in Eden Energy Medicine and in some of the classes I've been taking, we have what's known as our 7 main chakras, the energy wheels, and the throat chakra is connected. Your thyroid is by your throat. And I just, part of, yes, I'm still taking medicine, I'm doing all kinds of things, but part of the remedy for me has been in healing is speaking up and speaking my voice. It's partly why I think I'm doing this show. So just there's all different ways to look at healing, and there is an energetics component. And anyhow, just curious because so many people that have written in about, I've done a couple videos on thyroid and thyroid healing. Do you have any thoughts about what you're seeing with
Yeah, I
that?
mean, I think you're right. All autoimmune disease is on the rise, all of it.
Yeah.
Many and women are predominantly are affected more in most autoimmune diseases than men. And I think that our soil is not healthy. We're lacking nutrients. We have more bromide and fluoride and lots of things that shouldn't be there that affect the thyroid gland and our iodine uptake and iodine levels. And we have toxins that interfere with our gut microbiome, artificial X, Y, and Z, things that our gut microbiome has never seen before, but artificially created, chemically processed, nutrients taken out. So the microbiome is changing, which means our immune system is changing, and we're feeding tools to it that are not just low nutrients, but also chemicals, and we're not detoxing. So one thing I would say, before I would say, meditate or do yoga or work on your parasympathetic. Now I'm saying detox. Do something every day that helps you detox, because there are so many toxins that our bodies are fighting all the time. And those toxins will change our immune system and increase things like autoimmune disease. So, whether it's Epsom salt soaks or sweating, you don't have to go into a sauna, just sweating. And making sure you're having bowel movements every day. People don't know that they have to have a bowel movement every day. Some people say, oh, I'm normal, but I go twice a week. That's not normal. We need to go every day to 3 times a day. You got to urinate to the point where your urine is light yellow. So you want to be drinking enough water to help your body process. We're 60 to 70% water, right? And we want to sweat, and we want to work on our livers, support that liver, don't eat too many things that are dangerous for that liver, pesticides and, solvents and things that are chemicals that you're working around. Try to wear a mask if you're around it, and also use the nutrients that are really helpful for detoxification. Cruciferous vegetables, berries, beets, there's so many. And that's where your smoothie comes in, right? It's loaded in nutrients. And this is what changes the game, because now your liver's open, your congestion's down, your body's able to wake up and know foe from self. And so your autoimmune processes go down because it's actually got the nutrients to behave and fight. And I'm simplifying the immune system. It is not that simple, but the point is that muck in our system affects our immune system. And so everything that we can do, and sleep, we detox and sleep. So restorative sleep. And that's kind of been my new mission, is to get everyone to start doing more detox, because it also helps across the board, lower autoimmune disease, along with everything else we've talked about.
It's amazing. I'm going to also in the description share, I've been using the Aura Ring. I finally found the thing. It tracks sleep in a way. I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing. I'm sure many people have it already. If you don't, I'll have a link, because honestly, that is probably for me been the biggest key, is sleep. And like you said, it wasn't even addressed in former physician, when I saw the endocrinologist, it was never brought up. And it's hands down probably the thing I have noticed has made one of the biggest differences.
That's great.
Yeah. I just want to thank you for your time, your heart, your wisdom, who you are. I am so grateful. I really, every time I see you, I've said this to you, I'm like, Dr. Rao, we've got to just share you. We got to share your voice, share your wisdom. And I finally were like, we're doing this.
Well, thanks.
I like to end with what I call a heart flare. If your heart has something, or there's something coming through you, maybe I didn't ask you, or just a word of wisdom or something that you want to share with our our community is a family. I'm grateful that everyone tuning in, just beautiful sisters and brothers. So is there anything that's coming through you would like to share before we close?
I think the energy of doing things that you're passionate about, like what you did today, what we just did together. I walked into this exhausted because I had like a packed day of just back to back, whatever. And so just speaking to you, I just see my vibration, just all the stuff that we were talking about and being passionate about. Like, I'm actually vibrating, I'm resonating. I feel so much gratitude, and I feel like my skull is tingling. And so I just think that it's so powerful to go from low energy. Like I said, my whole mission was to find out ways for me not to be tired. And then this is that last layer, is to like be around people who are supporting your cause, that inspire you, that build you, because your energy. And again, when you're up here vibrating well and thinking positive thoughts, the rest of your body does well, right? So, but I felt like I just had a shot of espresso. So I'm so happy that I had this conversation with you at the end of the day, because about an hour ago I was like this. Just from the day was so long and just back to back.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
It was very fun, and I love the energy. Like, we can change by thoughts and by our people and our surroundings, because everything's vibrational. Even though you're on the screen with me, your energy that you're putting out is contagious, and it's exciting.
Beautiful. This is such a good reminder for all of us. Energy is contagious. Find people, hopefully come back to the show. We have good juju, good energy. But what you're saying is true. Notice how you feel before and after around certain people, situations, experiences. And I'm honored. I'm so grateful. And I love that you feel like you had an espresso. That's awesome.
I love coffee.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Me too, my friend.
Anyway,
I just thank you and love the reminder with energy. So important. We talk about this all the time here. And thank you
it's
for
so fun.
not abandoning medicine and deciding, okay, there's got to be a better way, and going into acupuncture and functional medicine. And I am thankful as one of your patients, and to share you and everyone. We will have your information, Dr. Rao. People want to reach out to you. They can also watch your lives and your webinars, and there's so many ways to connect and also learn. And we'll have your books
Thank
linked as
you.
well.
Thank you so much, Julie. Had so much fun. Thanks for having me. Take care. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to everyone. You are meant to be your USG, and that means love and honor all parts of you. I hope that you got that in this episode, that you are worthy of being healed and attending to yourself and loving yourself. You are always worthy. You are divine by design, and your body and your mind and your soul is all playing together and is always here for your highest good. Lots of love.